I cannot stress the importance of being your own best friend in this world. And I say this because a lot of us are people pleasers. A lot of us will give all of our time, all of our efforts towards other people, but we won't make time for ourselves. Sometimes we don't even not value who we are as people, but we just get caught up in the idea of making sure that everybody else around us is happy, because once you do that, you yourself will feel happy. You'll feel their energy, you'll feel what they're able to give out, and you'll take that in as your own. The only problem is, it's hollow, because that's not your energy. That's not how you feel at your core. That's how they feel. And what happens then is people tend to fade away. You don't have that constant stream of positive vibes that you were getting anymore. And this is why it's so important to have a core standing within yourself. You need to have a version of yourself that isn't harmed by anything else in this world. And that, my friends, is being your best friend. The question is, how do you become your best friend? And you know what? It's such an easy thing to say, but to do, not so much. So how do you be your own best friend? You just do what you would do towards your best friends, to yourself. If your best friend wasn't going to go to the gym, what would you say to them? You'd probably reiterate the importance of going to the gym, having a healthy physique, having a healthy mind, having a healthy body. Easy enough. If your best friend wasn't going to go to work because they weren't feeling good, what would you say to them? Even if you aren't feeling good, you still got to show up. Because you showing up with 20% of your effort is still better than you not being there at all, isn't it? So it's all these simple little things that we would say to the people that we care about the most. You got to say them to yourself too. And this is the problem. It's so easy to say them to the people we care about, because a lot of the times we don't really make time for ourselves. We're content enough to go off and work 8 hours a day for somebody else. We'll run errands for other people. We'll pick up the phone when a friend is struggling. We'll do all these things for everything around us so we can just fit into society. But when it comes to ourselves, what do? Not very much. And this is why I stress the importance of learning how to be your own best friend. Start doing what you want to do. It's your life. The only thing that I know right now is this here. Everything that I have right now is real. To me anyway. This is my reality. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm living. I want to live it how I want to live it. I want to enjoy the world. I want to see things. I want to travel. I want to not live a boring life. I can't do any of those things if I don't care for myself. Especially if I'm going to go off and travel the world. You can't leave yourself vulnerable in situations that could cause you problems. If you were to break down what being your best friend is, it's loving yourself, respecting yourself, liking yourself. It's just about giving yourself the props that you deserve. Because we don't do it enough. A lot of the time we look for external validation. And I'm such a bad influence when it comes to it, because all I ever wanted to hear was that you're doing a good job. You're worthy of being on this planet. You're not a bad person. All of those things, I always wanted to hear them. Even though it only made me feel better for a little bit, because as I said here, it makes no odds if it's coming from the external. If you don't believe it within yourself, within your core, it's not going to make any effect to you in this world. So why is it that we find it so hard to love ourselves, to respect ourselves, to be the person that we needed when we were younger? I'll tell you why. Because a lot of us were told when growing up that you're in love with yourself. That's what I heard anyway. I used to fix my hair in the mirror before going out doing something. It's like, oh geez, you love yourself. I used to always defend myself saying, no I don't want to love myself. Who am I to love myself? Something like that. If I could go back to my younger self, I would literally shake him by his ears and I'd tell him, yes, you do love yourself. You love yourself enough to make an effort before going outside, to look well, to smell good, to do all of these little things that you might not think is a big deal. You might see this as the standard for what you need to do in this world. I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people who don't even do that. There's a lot of people who don't even make the effort to brush their teeth in the morning because they're just going through it so badly. It's crazy to think. There's a lot of people who live in rooms that are uninhabitable. for a lot of us. There's a lot of people who just don't want to make an effort for themselves because they do not value themselves in this world. You need to value yourself. You need to care about yourself. And the biggest issue is you don't have to be egotistical about it. You don't have to go off and think that you're better than anybody. It's the last thing I'd ever want anybody to do, especially from watching my videos. But you need to understand that you are worth caring for. You're not a bad person. Even though you might think sometimes that you go through a bad patch, or you might say something to someone, or there might be an action that you're not very proud of. That does not define your whole character. One blip is not going to change all the good work that you've done. One blip does not change the core values you have within yourself. You have built these core characteristics of your being since the day you were on this planet. There's a lot to be said for that. So don't let it go in vain. And this is why it's so important to always come back to the fact that if you can't look after yourself, how are you going to look after anybody else? Because you are in charge of one person in this world, and that's you. The only person who should truly matter to you before you have a family, before you have other responsibilities, is you. And you gotta do what is best for you. Now the question is, what is best for you? I don't know, because I'm not you. I know what's best for me. What's best for me is staying sober. It's going to the gym. It's making an effort every day to get up and try to make some good content. Those are my 3 core values at the moment. And I'll have to say to myself, I'm doing pretty well, because I'm not letting myself slip up again. Now, if I do slip up, I'm not going to beat myself up this time either, because the biggest problem is that to be your own best friend, you cannot beat yourself up. Think about this for 2 minutes. If one of your friends went off and had a bad time, and then they started saying all these horrible things to themselves, you wouldn't allow that. You'd reassure them. You'd tell them all the things that they would need to hear to get back on that horse. But the problem is, when it comes to yourself, you will beat yourself up. You will say horrible things to yourself and stomp on yourself. Why? I don't know. Me personally, I used to think that if I continuously beat myself up, it won't hurt when somebody else does it. Nobody can be harder on myself than me. And if nobody's harder on myself than me, then nobody can truly hurt me. Corrupt logic. Corrupt logic. Because the truth is, it still can. Just because you beat yourself up consistently doesn't mean that if somebody else was to say something to you, it's not going to hurt. If anything, it's going to hurt more because you're still so vulnerable from you doing all the damage to yourself, that if somebody else comes over and says something, it's just going to load on more pain. But if you were to say the things to yourself that you need to hear at that time, if somebody was to come over and say some horrible things, it wouldn't hurt as much, because you've built yourself up to be a better person, to love yourself, to respect yourself, to give yourself what you are due in this world. Self-love is everything. Being your own best friend is everything. The person who loves himself is going to have a better life than the person that hates himself. The person who is their own best friend will always do better things than the person who doesn't respect themselves. It's not your fault that you grew up in a world where loving yourself wasn't something that a lot of us did. But now it is your problem. And since it's your problem, it's on you to fix it. Just like I'm trying to fix it. And just like a lot of us in this world, because we are the healing generation. For some reason, it's been put upon us to try and sort out all the generational trauma that has gone on for decades, maybe centuries, throughout human race. We're a lot softer, okay? Now, do I want to be soft? Not really. I don't like being soft sometimes because it leaves you vulnerable. But all I know is you can do both. You can be soft with yourself and hard with the world. Nipsey Hussle said an amazing quote before. I'm not sure if it's his quote, but it was, would you rather be at peace with yourself and at war with the world, or at war with the world and at peace with yourself? I'm taking the latter option every day of the week. Okay? I respect the world. I respect the people within it. But if you're not going to respect me, respect my character, respect my being, I don't want to be near it. I don't care enough to be near it. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to do good things, but I can't do good things if I'm not good to me, because everything starts internally. Don't try and clean up somebody else's house when yours is still dirty.